pierces the sky like a silent sentinel. Towering over the National Mall, tallest stone structure in the world. And yet, it almost wasn't built. The Washington Monument is not just a tribute to the nation's first president. It's a reflection of America itself. Ambitious, fractured, paused by conflict, and eventually completed with resolve. It began as an idea to honor a hero, but wars, politics, and division turned it into a national question. Can a country so divided finish what it starts? This is the story of how a monument came to stand. Not just for a man, but for a maturing nation trying to hold itself together. And why it still matters today. In the wake of the American Revolution, George Washington became more than a man. He became a symbol. He had led the Continental Army to victory. He had presided over the Constitutional Convention, and when offered the chance to be king, he declined, choosing instead to serve as the new nation's first president, then voluntarily stepping down after 2 terms. To the American people, Washington was virtue personified. A man who could have grasped absolute power, but chose democracy instead. After his death in 1799, there was near universal agreement. A monument must be built in his honor. But that agreement ended there. Where should it be? What should it look like? And who would fund it? Congress debated. Artists argued. Plans were proposed, then abandoned. Years passed. Presidents came and went. Still, no monument. Finally, in 1833, a group of private citizens formed the Washington National Monument Society. Their goal? To raise the funds, select the design, and bring the vision to life. Architect Robert Mills submitted a grand design, a towering obelisk surrounded by a circular colonnade filled with statues of founding fathers. It would be ambitious, expensive, and deeply symbolic. In 1848, construction began. A cornerstone was laid in a grand public ceremony. Speeches were delivered. Bells rang out across the city. The monument had finally started to rise. But as the stone climbed upward, so did the tensions that would soon shake the entire nation. The Washington Monument began with ambition, but quickly collided with the reality of a divided nation. In the early 1850s, the obelisk had risen just over 150 feet. Stone by stone, it climbed skyward, a tribute to unity. But beneath the surface, the country was fracturing. North and South argued bitterly over slavery, expansion, and power. Washington, D.C., the capital of compromise, was becoming a stage for confrontation. Then came controversy. The Monument Society had invited states, cities, and even foreign governments to donate memorial stones for the interior walls, each inscribed with messages of tribute. But one gift sparked outrage: a block from the Pope. Nativist groups like the Know-Nothings, fueled by anti-Catholic sentiment, protested fiercely. One night they broke into the site and threw the Pope's stone into the Potomac River. Shortly after, the Know-Nothings seized control of the Monument Society and donations dried up. The public was disillusioned. Congress withdrew funding. Construction stopped in 1854. And there it stood, a stump of national ambition. Unfinished, awkward, silent. For decades, the monument remained frozen in time, a towering reminder not of unity, but of division. Visitors to the National Mall saw a jagged column piercing the sky and wondered if the country that had started it would ever be whole enough to finish it. But like the man it was meant to honor, the monument would wait patiently for its moment and endure. For more than 2 decades, the Washington Monument stood abandoned, a jagged 150-foot column piercing the sky with no clear future. It was called the nation's greatest eyesore. Tourists came to see it not in admiration, but in curiosity, a symbol of halted ambition, of a country that had lost its way. The Civil War had torn the nation apart, and rebuilding unity would take more than stone. But by the 1870s, America was changing. The war had ended. Reconstruction was underway. A new generation of leaders was determined to restore not just the Union, but the image of a united, enduring nation. Congress reauthorized funding in 1876, the centennial of American independence. It was a symbolic gesture to finish what a fractured country had left undone. The Army Corps of Engineers, led by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Lincoln Casey, took over the project. He made structural reinforcements, corrected earlier design flaws, and sourced new stone, though it didn't match the original, resulting in the visible color change you can still see today. By 1884, the final capstone was set. At 555 feet, the Washington Monument became the tallest structure in the world at the time, an engineering marvel and a spiritual one. It had risen again, not untouched by conflict, but shaped by it. A monument that stood not just for one man, but for the idea that even a broken nation can heal and finish what it began. Though it bears the name of one man, the Washington Monument holds within its walls the fingerprints of many. Inside, 193 commemorative stones are embedded along the staircase, gifts from states, cities, and even foreign nations. They honor George Washington, yes, but also celebrate the broader ideals of unity, perseverance, and national identity. There are stones from Japan and Italy, the Cherokee Nation, the Grand Lodge of Freemasons, and dozens of US states and territories. Each one etched with pride, some with Latin phrases, others with emblems, symbols, and dedications to liberty. Taken together, they form a mosaic of American voices, a chorus saying, "We remember, we belong." Visitors used to climb the 897 steps to view these stones. Today, most take the elevator to the top. But the message remains. The monument is more than granite and gravity. It's a time capsule of civic spirit, a vertical archive of cooperation during a time when unity was hard-won. And from the observation deck, over 500 feet in the air, you can see it all. The Capitol to the east, the Lincoln Memorial to the west, the White House to the north. The Washington Monument stands not just at the center of the National Mall. It stands at the center of a national promise, that even divided, we rise together. The Washington Monument has stood tall for generations, but not without challenge. In 2011, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake struck the East Coast. Centered in Virginia, the tremor shook the ground beneath the Capitol and cracked the stone near the top of the monument. Visitors were evacuated. The elevator was shut down. Engineers climbed the monument by hand, assessing every fissure. It was the first time in modern memory that the structure's endurance was truly tested. Repairs took nearly 3 years, stone by stone, with lasers, scaffolding, and precision not imagined in 1884. When it reopened, crowds returned not just to admire it, but to honor its survival. Yet structural damage isn't the only trial the monument has faced. For decades, critics have debated its symbolism. Why, they ask, did a slaveholding president receive such towering recognition, while so many others, the builders, the visionaries, the marginalized, remained unnamed? These are valid questions. And like many of America's landmarks, the monument is part pride, part paradox. Still, it endures, not because it's perfect, but because it invites reflection. It invites us to ask, what should we honor? Who tells the story? The Washington Monument, once unfinished and nearly forgotten, now stands as a reminder. We do not build monuments to celebrate perfection. We build them to remember the path, flawed, hopeful, and unfinished. A towering reflection. It pierces the skyline. Simple, silent, strong. The Washington Monument is more than a tribute to one man. It is a mirror held up to the nation, reflecting not just the ideals of unity, but the long road it takes to reach them. Built across centuries, interrupted by politics, war, and division, raised by immigrants, free black laborers, and ordinary workers whose names are long forgotten. It stands today not because it was easy to build, but because it was worth finishing. This monument reminds us that democracy, like stone, is shaped slowly, through pressure, through cracks, through repair. It asks us to look up, but also to look inward. Because true unity is not declared from the top of an obelisk. It is built, like this monument was, inch by inch, across generations. This is Washington Chronicles. If this story moved you, subscribe and follow us. There are more stories waiting in the marble, the monuments, and the memory of this city. And as long as the monument stands, so does the promise it points toward.